Hey guys, what's going on? We got a plus 21 Neltharion Lair, and I am kind of starting this video early because as you saw, we jumped into the tunnel quickly before the key started. As you saw, I failed, but if you do that and you begin to slide, you get to skip the first 10 seconds or whatever that you have to wait for the orb to go down. So in this video, I will be telling you about the mobs and the dungeon affixes. So we'll start with the dungeon affixes. First, we got Tyrannical, which is the bosses do more damage and have more health. And then we got Entanglement, which will spawn a green circle and kind of put a chain on you. It slows you. You have to run out of the green circle. If you don't, you get stunned for 2 to 3 seconds. So it's pretty simple. You can use any form of movement break or anything like that. And then last we have bursting. So every time a unit dies, it puts a dot. Now, if you were to, let's say, kill something as the dot was about to fall off, it would reset the dot and add another stack. So you want to avoid doing that as much as possible because your healer will hate you. But on to the first boss, Rockmora. This is where a lot of groups have trouble. So what happens is every so often he will spawn a little spider ad. If you do not kill him, well, if you don't kill the ad before he does his shatter, the spider will add damage onto the shatter effect. And if you have one ad, it will most likely kill you, especially on Tyrannical or in the higher keys. Um, So kill them as fast as possible. The lower the health they have, the less damage it will add on to shatter. So if you can just get it quite low, then you're fine. Also, do not move during shatter, as you saw the electrified ground. If you move, you take damage, and it's not a little amount, it is quite a lot. So avoid moving as much as possible. Obviously, if you are in a green puddle while that's on, uh, move out as fast as you can and try not to move any further than you have to. So, and those green puddles spawn every time you kill one of the little spider ats. And the only other mechanic on this boss is his razor shards. And that is a frontal on the tank, so it is completely avoidable, and your tank should never be facing the boss towards the group. So you should never have an issue with that mechanic. And your tank can avoid getting hit by it just by sidestepping it or, just straight up moving out of the way. It's fairly easy to deal with. Sometimes it comes out during the shatter, but I think that's only like the first one. But your tank wouldn't have an issue moving out of it. So this slide, if you need to stay in combat, use a fish to hit one of these guys, and you'll sit in combat. So most classes that use the anvil should work. The anvil, basically, as long as you stay in combat, you'll keep your stacks. If you don't know what that trinket is, it's from the raid. If you don't know what it is, you probably don't need it, so I won't worry about explaining that. And on to these guys. So this is where a lot of the damage comes out. So the drummer you just want to kill. If you pull it, you don't have to. But the big one is the breaker. So he's going to do avalanche, which is a frontal on the tank, and then it spawns 3 swirlies that drop rocks from the ceiling. If they're overlapped, it's gonna hurt like heck. If they're not, it's not too bad, but you can avoid it as much as possible. And then you got these jumper guys. I think they're Pierce Pelters. Sorry. Um, Basically, what they're gonna do is they're gonna do jagged disc spam, and it does hurt. It is not threat changeable, so if it's targeting you, it is not the tank's fault. It targets anybody. So if you do melee attack them, they will jump away. So just be wary of that. I think they always jump behind. So try to face them towards an empty zone so you're not pulling more stuff. And then with these Hulks, they do a tank mechanic, which is fracture and then piercing shards. So don't stand in front. I mean, in most dungeons, you never want to stand with your tank. These little shapers, they do a rock bolt or something. Interrupt if you want. It really doesn't hurt. And then they spawn those totems. I've never stood in one, so I really don't know what they do. I think it's like a pacifier or something, and then it deals damage. It's literally one hit. They have 10 health. That's it. And they get hit by AoE too. So feel free just to ignore them for the most part. And then once the fight's over, honestly, just tap it with something and it'll fall over. But yeah, the biggest pain in the butt in this whole dungeon are these breakers and the pelters. That's what's going to get most groups. In a fortified week, they are an absolute nightmare. They're not so bad on tyrannical week, just because, you know, they're not getting that extra 30% damage increase. Let me come over here. So Shaper and this Geode. So this Geode only casts Scorch. You cannot stun it or anything. Try and kill it as fast as you can because it spawns swirlies. It basically does a firestorm, and it's really annoying just to keep dodging. So just kill it as fast as you can before you kill anything else. Other than that, we'll be coming up to the second boss here in a second. Ulrog Crag Shaper. There's not a huge amount to deal with. Well, I guess there kind of is. So the main thing you want to watch out for is Strike of the Mountain. Basically, this is going to choose, I think, 3 targets and spawn 4 hands, as you saw there. You want to move out. Now, make sure you are not running while he's casting it, or else you could end up running into a hand. Wait until the hands spawn, and you will have an opening. So, as you can tell, they're going very fast. I don't know if I mentioned it, but we're watching this in 1.5 times speed, so that way it doesn't take as long like the other ones. And then these totem things. So this phase here, he turns himself into a totem, and you want to follow where the middle totem goes, because that's the one you want to kill to respawn the boss. And then you just kill the totem that he was. All while this is happening, avalanches are falling from the sky. When the season first started, this boss was an absolute nightmare because that avalanche was killing everybody, because every totem would just trigger an avalanche rather than one after another. It was doing it all at the same time, so it would just insta kill somebody. So yeah, the Bellow of the Deep. So that's just spawning the 2 totems and you just kill them. Simple, pretty easy. A little trick to that is he always spawns his left one first, I guess. So if your tank knows, if he goes to the left and then you shift him, so his right hand is towards the totem now, he'll spawn them on top of each. Hopefully that made sense. I think it made sense. Find out. But yeah, that's it for this guy. The real pain is the worm boss. He's going to bring out a lot of damage, which is Neuraxis. As you'll see, we'll be taking quite a lot of damage. But on to the next set of trash, which we pull the alligators from the water. So this is a common pull, just because they're easy to kill and they give quite a bit of percentage. So it just makes it so you don't have to pull stuff later on, like the scorpions or more pelters. They're much easier to kill than those things. Those things are a real pain in the butt, especially on a fortified week. But on to this next pull. So this worm guy, so you saw them at the very start of the dungeon. You do an underground, then a bile spew or something. After they come out of their burrow, they no longer have aggro to the tank, so be careful. And these grub masters, they spawn a maggot on the ground. It'll start casting metamorphosis. Make sure you stun it or something like that because if it goes off, it will be a group wipe because it spawns a special worm that puts a giant green puddle around it and pulls you in, and the puddle kind of insta kills you. It's I don't know if that's intended or not, but yeah, it's pretty simple to avoid that happening, but if it does happen, you're gonna die and you'll have to wait for it to despawn. So it's not very nice for that to happen. But coming up to Araxis, if you're ever running Neltharion's Lair, make sure you bring Poison Cleanse Totem specifically for this boss. So you'll see me use it quite a few times here. So this Rancid Maw is a puddle he throws on the ground. You want to make sure it's in the path of these ads, so that way it slows them. As you can see, you can't quite slow them very well. So yeah, make sure you put that in the way. So that way you have time. If the boss eats one of the ads, he gains a 50% damage increase. As you'll see later, we do let one through by accident. But yeah, and then you got this spiked tongue where the tank has to run away or else he gets eaten. And the munch damage is quite a lot. But make sure before the cast ends, make sure you run away from the boss if you are melee. But onto the reason why we bring Poison Cleanse is the Toxic Wretch puts a poison dot on the entire group. If you bring Poison Cleanse Totem, you can negate a lot of that damage just by dropping it on the floor. And it helps out quite significantly. As you see, it devoured, and now we're taking even more damage, which the healer hates us for. So I felt bad for the poor healer. I don't think he had very much fun, but as you see, the spike tongue is ending and we're backing away just to make sure we don't get melee slapped. But yeah, also in Toxic Wretch, it does put the dot on you, but it does spawn puddles around him. So just watch your feet basically. But these ads are the most important part of the boss. Make sure they die. If they don't die, then you're gonna struggle. But yeah, as you see, it puts a lot of green puddles around that you have to avoid, and you're taking so much damage. If it's quite, it used to be worse. I think they nerfed it by like 25%. It used to be much worse. Like I don't understand how people did this boss early on in the season. Like it was kind of ridiculous. Like I think they nerfed it 25 and then they nerfed it by another 20 later on. Like it's quite crazy, and you can see how much damage we took. But now we're into the final hallway. So we do a little skip here, although I think the priest messed up. Don't remember. I think those two ended up pulling. But yeah. Yeah, so yeah. So we accidentally pulled those. You don't have to. Oh, got slapped by an avalanche. So yeah, you insta die as a shaman. Nothing happened there, so you just reincarnate. Who cares? But yeah, the reason why we avoid is just percentage. You pull the 3 and then you go forward and you don't have to do anything. But since we pulled these two, we then skip and go forward. So we just mind soothe and walk past. If you touch one of these guys, he will kick you out. So make sure you're not going close to them. Make sure you're far away so that way you don't get punted. Because you will get knocked into those ads. But onto the scorpion guy. So this guy just shoots out spikes to everybody. He doesn't care. And then he does a frontal swipe, so you got to be careful. Don't stand on the tank as usual. And then he also does a frenzy, so if you have a soothe, make sure you soothe that off. It's these are a real pain in the butt on fortified. The trapper just casts something called bound. Basically, that'll just stun the tank. Make sure you interrupt it. He only ever casts it once, as I've ever seen, so it's one and done. All over. So yeah, so just make sure you burn down the scorpion as fast as possible. Make sure you soothe the enrage off if you can. It will reduce the amount of damage that is going out. It also increases his attack speed, so that means he's throwing even more out. But onto the boss Dargul. So this one's fun. Uh, Make sure you're always standing on his side without the hammer. And the reason for that is so when he throws out the crystal spikes and then spawns the molten giant, as you'll see, it will instantly stun him and you won't have to worry about it. So watch this, bam, he's stunned already. And then you just burn the ad down because it's taking 400% increased damage right now. So it's very key. Make sure you're not standing behind the tank at all because that landslide goes the whole map. As you see, it does not have a range. So yeah, uh, make sure as the tank, if you are tanking, make sure landslide doesn't hit the crystal spikes either, or else it breaks. If it breaks, then this magma wave is going to kill you. So all you got to do for magma wave is hide behind the crystal. It is not line of sight, so if you want to hide behind it first, go for it. But as you see, the tank kind of moves the boss, so that way it insta-spawns the magma sculpture right away. And done. And now it's just a simple burn and you're good. As you see, he's trying to get back up, but we spawn another one right on top of him, and there goes another stun, and he's done. So that's basically it for this boss. All this time you're taking damage from that molten smash or whatever, the magma wave. He spawns a puddle afterwards. So if you're not standing in it, you'll take less, but it does erupt every so often. But yeah, that is all the mechanics for this guy. Um, oh, I guess if the boss or the magma sculpture move, like they actually take steps, it erupts a lot of damage towards the whole group. So be careful not to move the boss too much or move the ad because it will be a group wipe if they move way too much because it is quite a bit of damage. But yeah, that is it for Neltharion's Lair. Hopefully you enjoyed and hopefully this video helps you out. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.